With the Fnaf movie releasing in a few months from now, and also the fact that Fnaf is about to reach 10 years old, I thought let's go back and rank every single one of the main Fnaf games from the least good to the best of the bunch. So the criteria for these games rankings will simply be, is the game fun? Is it memorable? And also, is it scary? So with that, sit back, relax, and let's get into the video. So coming in the last spot on my list is going to be Fnaf 3. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game by any means. This game in particular is one that appeals the least to me. Now, I was around in the Fnaf community around this time. Obviously, the hype for Fnaf 3 was really intense, and overall, it did bring a lot of intrigue for the game. However, with the game launching, it honestly is a well thought out game. Springtrap is, in my opinion, the best animatronic in the whole franchise. So those are some positives. However, some negatives are that the game is very boring. In fact, it's probably the most boring game out of the bunch. Everything to do with Springtrap is great. However, I don't really like the audio luring system. It does work, but if you didn't know, there's actually a method. If you just keep Springtrap on cam 8, he really can't affect you. Even if you do get like hallucinated, or if you lose the cameras, you still are able to survive as long as Springtrap is somewhere in between cam 8. And that is kind of a strat. So you wouldn't think it's game breaking, but overall, once you start implementing this into your Fnaf 3 playthroughs, you will really understand how easy this game is to complete. The cryptic mini games are very nice to see. I like how Fnaf 2 and Fnaf 3 are just really cryptic with these games, and it makes the story more compelling. That's great, but overall, the game isn't scary. And I'm not going to be someone that just says Springtrap's jump scare is bad, but even if I said that, it's true. Springtrap's jump scare is pretty bad, but that doesn't mean the game isn't scary. What causes the game to not be scary is that there's only one animatronic that can actually end your game, and that's Springtrap. All the phantoms can only make it easier for Springtrap to jump scare you, and pretty much all the phantoms literally are no threat to you. You can literally just tank their jump scare and continue playing like nothing happened. Overall, it's a game that I don't think is bad, but in my opinion, it's the least fun out of the main Fnaf games. Alright, so next up is going to be Security Breach, and I have said in previous videos that I really enjoy Security Breach. That is true, I enjoy this game, but the reason why I enjoy it isn't because it's a actually good game, it's just because it's just a lot of fun, and in my opinion, it is the most fun out of all the Fnaf games, and that is a good thing. However, it isn't really scary. The only scary section in this whole game, including DLC, would probably be the basement endo level on 3 AM. That is actually quite a decent section and is really kind of the highlight of Security Breach. However, the things this game was trying to show, like Vanny, is just done so poorly, and the fact that Burn Trap had to just come back out of nowhere really just makes it so it's just laughable. Like, the whole idea of Vanny is really good, but the way it was just done is really just a letdown. Like, there was unused animations of Vanny that were meant to be in this game, and it shows that there was actually a lot more planned for this character. However, when the game released, we ended up seeing a completely different game, and overall it made it so this character was pretty much unused throughout the whole game. And I believe when this game was being developed that Freddy wasn't actually meant to be a good guy. In fact, Freddy was going to be another animatronic like everyone else. However, for some reason, before this game was released, they ended up making it so Freddy is actually a good guy, which I don't really mind. In fact, I think Freddy is actually a great character in this game. However, overall as a package, Security Breach is kind of a letdown. If you think about the hype this game had, and obviously the release, it was just a buggy mess, and this didn't really stop until like a few months down the track, and even then, if you play it now, there's going to be a bunch of bugs, and it's overall going to be a pretty clunky experience. And this is for PC. For PlayStation, well, the way I played it originally was on PlayStation, and it ran pretty well. I didn't really experience too much game-breaking stuff, but definitely the ports to PC was just really poorly done, and overall, Security Breach is just a game that had a lot of potential, but it just missed that spark, and overall, it's a game that I'm going to be putting second last on this list. So the next spot for this list is going to be Ultimate Custom Night. This is a really good game. It's a game that really isn't meant to be taken seriously. It's a game that just has all the animatronics in, and pretty much you can just do anything you want, which I think is a really good sandbox and is something that FNAF needed at that time. It even added some lore stuff, which honestly I wasn't really expecting from a game like Ultimate Custom Night, but it did anyways, and it's pretty good stuff. Like, the lore really does give more clarity to what happened to William Afton after FNAF 6. Like, the whole game being just William Afton's purgatory is really clever, and to see literally every single animatronic in one game is just a really impressive feat. And the 2050 challenge is honestly one of the most insane challenges in gaming history. Like, it is something that takes a bunch of skill, and to see people actually do it is insane. A challenge that I'm pretty sure Scott intended this challenge to be beatable, but still, in that same matter, it is a really impressive thing to see with the FNAF community. Around that time, I didn't really touch much FNAF, so it does have a, like, not really as much nostalgia for me. Like, around this time, I had a really big break on FNAF. I didn't really come back to, like, I think Security Breach. So this game is one that I didn't really get to experience when it did release, but coming back to it, like, it's been, what, 4 or 5 years now? It's a really impressive game, and one that is definitely worth a playthrough if you haven't done so already. The next spot is going to be Sister Location, and this is a game that is actually a really good game. Like, all the games from now on, I would say, are kind of like my top 20 games of all time, and Sister Location is one that is just a really fun experience. And if we're talking about replayability, then this game really wouldn't be up here, but because it's a really good first time game to play, if that makes any sense. I'm pretty much saying that the first time you play this game, it's a real joy. Like, everything, including the Funtime Freddy section, I believe is called. Yeah, Funtime Freddy section. The Ballora section is actually really well done. Both when you're going through the auditorium and when you are in the spring lock suit. These are really good sections, and even the Funtime Foxy section, they're really well done. And this game, overall production wise, is one of the best in terms of the OG games. Like, this game has voice actors, which at the time was brand new to FNAF, and it actually won an award for voice acting in gaming. I'm not sure what the specific award was, but it won an award for gaming. Like, that is insane. And to see the FNAF, like, evolution, to see how the games became more focused on production, and now how we have Security Breach, which is a kind of a campaign experience, it's just really amazing to see. And this game kind of shifted from OG FNAF to modern day FNAF, and this game, in my opinion, is one of the best lore games. Like, the amount of lore this game has is probably the most in the whole series. We get to see Michael Afton, how he's the son of William Afton. We get to see how William had a family, and even so, we get to even hear what the purple guy's name actually was. This was the first time we ever heard the name William Afton, which is kind of insane actually, because before this, he was just known as the purple guy. That's all we had. Custom Night in this game was actually really well done. The fact that you actually have to do an Easter egg in game to unlock it is just really smart. And for a first time playthrough, this game is an absolute blast. Like, you really get to just fully experience this game, and it really does show its really good aspects. And the bad aspects obviously are it's repetitive. It's a one and done game, obviously, but still, it's a great game and is, in my opinion, deserving of the number 6 spot. Okay, so let's get into the top 5 now. And starting off the top 5, it's going to be Five Nights at Freddy's number 1. I was contemplating a lot on changing some of these spots on the list. Like, at one stage, I was going to be putting Sister Location below Ultimate Custom Night, but I ended up changing it. But this game was very close to being above FNAF 2, but I just put it below FNAF 2 because, in my opinion, FNAF 1 is one of the scariest games. It is an absolute blast to play, and it began this whole franchise. This game literally changed gaming forever. The only problem I have with FNAF 1 is the gameplay aspect. The doors and lights are kind of gimmicky, but they very much work for the first few nights. But when you get to like night 5, the doors and lights are just, they're not as good as what we ended up getting later, but they're definitely a staple for the franchise. But I feel like it's too safe with the doors shut. Obviously your power does drain, but up to night 3, the game is very much just shut your door, If you see them, make sure not to open it, and also flash your light to see if they're on both either side of the hallway. That's pretty simple stuff. Obviously later on you do get Freddy, who kind of makes it a lot harder to rotate between Foxy and Freddy himself, and it does make the game a lot harder. But for the first few nights, the game is really just door simulator, which it's great because it did start off the whole franchise, and it's still a great game to play. Even in the year 2023, it's still a blast to play, and we're even getting a FNAF movie now. So this game is still getting attention, even it being 12 years old. People are still caring about this game that started it all, and it's really just amazing to see. The jump scares in this game are really good, and overall the sound design is just, honestly, I can't believe how good this sound design is, especially for a game that literally came out of nowhere, was made by a guy that at the time no one knew. Scott absolutely smashed this game out of the park. The sound design is just really good, and overall FNAF 1 is just really nostalgic for me, and for that reason I'm going to be putting it as the number 5 spot. So for the next spot, this is going to be FNAF Pizzeria Simulator. This is, in my opinion, the most underrated FNAF game of all time. It did release with pretty much no one knowing it's actually going to be a horror game. Like, Scott just dropped this as some sort of very fun pizzeria simulator, but it launched and everyone, and I mean everyone, was shocked. This game had really good elements. It really mastered and fine-tuned the sound design from FNAF 3. It made it so the sound is really essential to either you being alive or you being jump scared, and that is what FNAF 3 didn't do right. And as I went through, that's what made FNAF 3 less memorable and overall not as good as an experience. And FNAF 6 took that and made it 10 times better, and it did so without getting rid of the core elements of this franchise, and that is a really impressive feat, and is one that only FNAF 6 has done, and to this day is one of the most scariest FNAF games of all time. It's also sometimes intense because you have to really make a decision whether you're going to power down, whether you're going to let the task keep on going, because if you make a wrong move, well, you're gonna get jump scared and it's gonna be terrifying. An argument for this game is that the jump scares aren't good, and you're right, the jump scares are just PNGs, but that doesn't mean it's not a scary game, because unlike FNAF 3, as I mentioned, this game and FNAF 3 share a lot of similarities, but this game is just kind of the better version of FNAF 3, if that makes any sense. You also get multiple endings. You can get the actual ending, which is pretty much the pizzeria burning down, or you can get like really random endings. Like there's one where on the last night you like put up a blueprint of a prototype and it just gives you a really random ending. Like stuff like that really adds to the mystery of Pizzeria Simulator. And this game is pretty much what ended FNAF at the time. This was meant to be the last FNAF game. It concluded a really good story and also added more things to theory about it, like the Midnight Raceway, I think it's called Midnight Motorist, something like that. The mini game where you're William Afton, or in this case, the yellow guy, and you're driving down to your house. It's a really complex story, but it apparently has a lot of lore implications, I've heard, and it's still to this day being discussed about what's actually going on, and that to me is absolutely insane. Like 6 years and people still don't know what this game really means. Like, that is insane. There is also the aspect that you can literally build your own pizzeria. It's perfect. It's a perfect game and is super deserving of this number 4 spot. So heading into the top 3, this is going to be FNAF 2. This game is a really good game, but it's also a very overrated game. And before you start yelling at me and start slapping that dislike button, I am not saying this game is bad. In fact, it's pretty much what launched FNAF into what it is today. Without this game, FNAF would have been a one and done case, but this is really what took the stakes and just made it 10 times more important with no doors. And at the time, this was massive. There was no doors, there was only a light and a mask, and people didn't really know what was going on. Like, the teasers are just so good. When this game was being released and announced, the teasers were just mind-blowing. Like, every single week you got new crazy game posts. Like, there was one that was about no doors with Foxy standing at the far end of the corridor. That was mind-blowing at the time, and it was really a game that if you were there for it, you know that it was just so big at the time. The main issues I have with FNAF 2 is just overall, the animatronics are just, the toy ones are like not scary, but they don't really add too much to the story. Toy animatronics are just kind of there just to be there, whereas obviously the Withered are just really good designs. Withered Chica and Withered Bonnie are just, they're honestly the best designs out of this game. And also the puppet at the time, that animatronic really somehow scared me. I remember at the time just hating the puppet because it was just so creepy, and I'd always have like nightmares of it. And I'd always have to like keep the light on because I always thought the puppet was going to be in my closet. The game simply has so much memories and nostalgia that I simply can't put it lower than 3 because I will feel that I'm just doing the game not justice, when in actual reality it's a game that kind of made FNAF what it is today, and for that I just can't thank it enough. So heading into the top 2, the number 2 spot for this video is going to be Five Nights at Freddy's 4. And I very much remember this game being announced and I was shocked. Like, I dropped my, at the time, Android and just stared in pure shock, because at the time FNAF 3 was meant to be the last ever FNAF game, and all of a sudden we're getting another one, and it was just so surreal to remember just knowing that something FNAF related is coming in like the next few months. It was just amazing. Some issues I have with FNAF 4 is really just once you start to know the sound the animatronics breathe, the game does become a lot easier, because I remember the first few nights really were challenging for me, but then I ended up knowing, or ended up getting used to the animatronics breathing sounds, and it made the game 10 times easier. Like, I completed night 3 and 4 first go. However, this game has just a lot more than what meets the eye. You have Fredbear, which is an amazing character. He's pretty much in this game shown to be like Death, and even Nightmare, which is literally Death himself. Like, if you have seen Puss in Boots 2 recently, and yes, I'm getting off topic, but I'm trying to talk about FNAF games and this sometimes happens, so just go along with it. But Puss in Boots 2 showed Death and it was just amazing, and this game had Death in the form of Nightmare, and it is just so bone chilling. And you also have Night Marionette, or is it Night Marion? I don't really know, but he's a character that at the time made me just, oh, that was just painful. I remember seeing him for the first time and just absolutely just having an instant breakdown. Puppet scared me, so as you can imagine, when I saw a Nightmare version of the puppet, it just completely broke my mind. Another thing this game did that I didn't like was the dream theory, and the game was meant to just show that the first 4 games in the series were just meant to be dreams, and this was eventually retconned by Scott himself, because obviously the FNAF community went absolutely crazy over this decision. But beside that, this game is a game that I remember just being an absolute blast, and I didn't really play it at the time it released because all I had was an Android and I couldn't really experience this game because I only owned the demo. But even the demo just made me scared. Every time I played it, I always knew that FNAF 4 was the game that was meant to be scary, and that is why I think FNAF 4, in my opinion, because of the nostalgia it brings me, I'm going to be putting this as the number 2 spot. So coming in as the number 1 spot, this is going to be Help Wanted. I love this game, and it's a game that just does everything the old FNAF games have done and just brings it onto a VR, which if you haven't experienced, you should. And even if you don't have a VR, there's a Steam version, which is just this game without a VR, and even that is a joy to play. It pretty much is just a recollection of every single FNAF game, 1 to 3, then it does something with FNAF 4, and then after that, it's just like different games. Like, you have Plush Trap, you have, I believe you've got the repairs, which are really awesome, and then you even have the DLC with Curse of Dreadbear. The main reason why this game is number 1 is because of the amount of content this game has, and also the fact that it's just so fun to play. And with the amount of content is in this game, like you have the disc which like give lore to this game, and going into the lore, I think this game really does screw up a lot of the already established story. Like the whole glitch trap design is good, but I find his story in this game is just really wacky, and I can't really put my head around the fact that somehow William Afton had a chip that he had somewhere in his suit that someone picked up and put into a system, and now he's back. That to me is a bit far-fetched, but in saying that, I feel like it's just kind of light-hearted. It's not meant to really be taken super seriously anymore. It's kind of leading into more sci-fi horror, which is fine, but it kind of does completely retcon the original games and the story that those games told, and that to me is something that I don't really like. But beside that, gameplay wise and content wise, this game is just above every single game, and that's pretty much every single FNAF game ranked. If you guys want to see me play all the FNAF games, well, on screen I have a video that shows me playing every FNAF game. How good is that? So yeah, take it easy and goodbye.